And one of the people that has been deep in the weeds on all of this, our good friend, the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton. Tom, good to have you back with us today.
Hey, Todd. I always thought we were the Kraken, but I guess not.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But, Tom, I got to tell you, that was one heck of a press conference, and clearly Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani are righteously indignant about all of this.
I think what is the powerful claim that they bring, and one that I've always been stuck with, is that, under federal law, we're supposed to figure out who won on Tuesday. And you have clarifying activity that takes place after the fact, and the states certify. And so there's a period of time when disputes can be resolved. In too many states, we didn't know who won on Tuesday, or, in theory, someone did win on Tuesday, namely President Trump, and the results changed as a result of counts that took place after the fact. And I think the most important allegation that's being raised, and the most substantial in terms of being rather obvious, in terms of being hard to dispute, is that the counting took place in a way that you can't be sure that the outcome is legitimate, in that those who are allowed to, under law, to observe counting to make sure fraud isn't taking place were effectively prohibited from doing so. Now, there's an argument of Pennsylvania. Well, does observation mean being able to actually observe anything? A partisan Supreme Court in Pennsylvania said no. I don't know if the federal Supreme Court would agree with that interpretation. So to me, that's a substantial issue. It's not only an issue in Pennsylvania, it's an issue in these other jurisdictions as well. And if I were them, I'd ride that horse hard.
And, Tom, beyond the presidential vote, you still have congressional races that have not been decided yet. They have not called races in a number of places around the country, including Long Island. There are a couple in New York State. So to your point, this is a problem.
It is a problem. And, of course, it was a planned problem. The chaos was planned. They told us this is what's going to happen. There was going to be a red mirage. Remember, on Election Day, the president would win, and then the results would change after Election Day. And I don't know about you, but that is necessarily evidence of misconduct. That's not the way our elections are supposed to work. The idea that it's up in the air for weeks after an election is not normal, and the left media and big tech telling you that it's perfectly normal, they're out to lunch on it. Even in 2000, President Bush won in Florida. The dispute was whether there could be recounts that would change the outcome of the vote. Here, we're still not confirmed in some key states as to who won.
Tom,
or it wasn't confirmed until weeks after election. That's not the way the law's supposed to work, and it's not the way our election's supposed to work. And into that pause, the pauses that took place and the counting that took place, that's where the undermining and the confidence of the elections occur. That's where the opportunities for fraud occur. So when they come out and say, well, they were counting all these ballots, no one could see them, practically speaking, therefore they're not valid, that's not a point that can be brushed off. And that's evidence of fraud, frankly. That's evidence of misconduct. And when you count ballots in a way that you can't certify the results, they shouldn't be counted at all. And I think that's the key point that ought to be made.
And Tom, and you are on the record. You're calling for and demanding that the courts and state legislatures and Congress protect free and fair elections. And I understand you guys are conducting independent investigations in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin. What can you tell us about that?
Well, we're filing Freedom of Information Act requests on virtually every topic that we're talking about. Now, we're not going to be able to figure out what went on before the next president's confirmed, but we're going to figure out what went on, or have more information about what went on. And I would hope the media would be interested in getting this information as well. Certainly, it ought to be disclosed automatically, given the crisis we're in. We already know through our other litigation, you have more people on the rolls than are eligible to vote in Pennsylvania and Michigan. Clark County, Nevada, they have 154,000 extra names on the rolls in Clark County, according to our analysis. 654,000 extra names in Michigan. According to our lawsuit, we're trying to clean up the rolls in Pennsylvania, over 800,000 names. But we knew those voting rolls were a mess, and they mailed them out anyway.
Tom, I'm curious.
Look at the mess they made. Look at the mess they've made.
Tom, I'm curious. What are you guys finding out about this Dominion voting system? These machines.
all we know is about what we read in the newspaper and what I'm hearing from Sydney, who I trust. I mean, look, I'm kind of a simple guy. It's like, well, what do we know out there? And is what we know out there enough to raise questions? And what happened in that one county in Michigan, in my view, is enough to raise questions, where you had a combination of human operator and computer error in the sense that the software wasn't uploaded properly to mix and to match the current election ballot, and resulted in a flip of votes. Well, I've read carefully the explanation of what went on, and I encourage you to, Todd. And frankly, it's not terribly persuasive that the problem was small or limited to that one jurisdiction. So I think just what happened at one place is enough for everywhere else that used this system to audit what went on.
And again, I think going back and folks, if you have not bookmarked judicialwatch.org, you really should. Such a great wealth of information and quite frankly, a bit prophetic here. You guys had a piece back in November 2nd to be exact. Judicial Watch finds 1.8 million ghost voters in 29 states. And you guys were warning of dirty elections before the election.
I testified to Congress about it back in the late spring, early summer, and I yelled at them about suppressing the in-person voting by scaring people from voting in person, how a vote by mail is a disaster. It's long been observed to be the worst possible way to vote in terms of fraud and misconduct. I mean, you don't know what's happening when you're voting, allowing mass voting taking place away from polling places. But you can't. It's susceptible. It's the worst of all worlds. It's susceptible to fraud, but it's almost impossible to prove fraud because you don't have any witnesses unless someone comes forward, virtually speaking, and confesses. It's a nightmare, and it should not be allowed. If there's anything we learn from this election, vote by mail is a menace to the public confidence in the fair administration of elections and should be eliminated for all practical purposes.
Well said. Got to leave it there, Tom. Great stuff as always. Judicialwatch.org. Bookmark that. Go to that website. Follow Tom on Twitter. Tom, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.